Hello Infiniteers, and welcome back for my next episode of Toy Box Tutorials. The focus of our lesson today is the Victory Tracker, and you'll find this in the Creativi-toys drawer. And we are going to use this to build a simple combat challenge similar to a Mario Kart Battle Course. I think you're really going to like this. But before we get started, I want to make a couple of comments. First, if you are playing on the Gold Edition on PC, you will not have the ability to do a two-player game like this. You may be able to build it, but you won't be able to play it with two players. However, the Victory Tracker can be used for some neat things besides two-player challenges, and I'm going to talk about that in this video, so you may want to stick around for this tutorial anyway. It will be worth your time, trust me. Second, the Victory Tracker was first introduced in Disney Infinity 1.0, which means it's available in 2.0, and so you should be able to build this exact same game in 2.0, which means that if you're playing 2.0 on a PS4 or Xbox One, you can actually use the peer-to-peer connection in 2.0 to play this with up to 4 players online, which should be a lot of fun. And if you weren't aware that you could still do that in 2.0, you should definitely check out PoppaH's video about that. I'll include a link to it in the video description and on my blog. Unfortunately, for me and some others of you, that peer-to-peer connection does not exist in the Wii U or Xbox 360 versions of Disney Infinity 2.0, so you should be aware of that. And that's a bummer because I would have loved to have been able to play this with PoppaH on 2.0 and have some fun with it. But anyway, before we get to the lesson, let me just give you a quick tour of my little battle course. It's a very basic toy box, and it took me about 10 minutes to build this. So it's not too bad. Basically, I started with the terrain block that we began with when you start a new empty toy box, and then I stuck the next size smaller here, one of those on either side of that first terrain block that we start with in the empty toy box, and then I did a ring of those all the way around the perimeter. And on the corners, I used the next size smaller. And then I used a few terrain blocks here to kind of pretty up the edges. So I used this wide floating cliff here and here on each corner. I used this piece, the narrow floating cliff, on the inside corners so it didn't look so square. I put some cliff edges around the outside, just so the outside didn't look so square. And then I stuck the volcano from Toy Box Takeover here in the middle. And a few little buildings here around the perimeter. This one's from the Incredibles building. These are from the Twilight of the Republic playset. And a few vehicle weapon generators, and we covered these in an earlier episode of Toy Box Tutorials. I put one behind each of those buildings. I put a couple of boost pads over here. This one going that way, this one coming this direction. And over on this side, we have 2 vehicle weapon generators and 2 boost pads. And it's a very simple little thing. You don't want to make your battle arena too big. You want to keep it somewhat small so that players can quickly find each other, because you want to be able to keep the action going. And so this is about the largest you're going to want to make it. And then I built this little island over here connected with a bridge. This is from the racetrack pieces. And I did this just so I could put the start pad and the challenge maker and some of the other toys we need out of the way, so you're not running into those on the challenge itself. And so that's what I've got. So again, it's pretty simple toy box to build. Took me about 10 minutes. Might take you about 15 or so. For the sky, I'm using Syndrome's Headquarters Sky from Toy Box Takeover. For the terrain, I'm using the Numancian Island terrain, also from Toy Box Takeover. So, but again, you can use any terrain theme you want, any sky dome you want. Doesn't really matter. Okay, to build this challenge, this little combat challenge, like the Mario Kart Battle Course, we're going to need 4 Creativi-toys. We need a challenge maker, and this we covered way back in episode 37, so if you need a refresher on that, you can go back and watch that. We need a scoreboard, and we covered this toy in episode 77. We need a kill switch. We covered this toy back in episode 25. And we need a brand new toy, which is the Victory Tracker. And again, that's our topic for today. We haven't covered this toy up until now, and we're going to cover it today. So we'll drop that here. The Victory Tracker keeps track of when players, enemies, and townspeople are hit or defeated, and it broadcasts trigger signals when those events occur. You can then hook those signals up to other toys to build a combat challenge like this one, or make something happen after someone or something is hit and defeated. And don't confuse this toy with the Defeat Manager, which we covered back in episode 26. That toy has no logic connections, only properties that governs what happens to the special move meter and the power disc meter and a couple of other things when a player is defeated. This toy, the Victory Tracker, is the toy you need to build a multiplayer or multi-team combat challenge. But as I said, you can also do some other things with it. So let's go ahead and drop one out here to play with while we go over the features of this toy. And I also dropped a couple of other little things that will help us out. A button, and I'll actually put 2 of these down over here. And I dropped these ahead of time because the Creativi-toys drawer is pretty long. I didn't want to have to scroll. And we'll need a sound effect generator. I'll drop that over here. And before I forget, let's set the property on the sound effect generator to turn off 3D sound at speaker or locator. Alright, so the Victory Tracker, if you open the logic menu for this, you'll notice there are no properties, so there's no settings for it. It does have some logic connections, which I'll get to in a moment. It also has 2 behaviors, and these behaviors are important because when you place this toy in the environment, even if you try to hook it up to something, this toy will not do anything until you first activate it. And so that's why I dropped a couple of buttons out here. So on the first button, we'll do a new logic connection when pressed. We'll come over to our Victory Tracker, and you'll notice there are 2 behaviors. You can activate it and deactivate it. So you have to turn this toy on before it'll do something. And then you can also turn it off when you want, and we'll use this button to do that. Okay. So we'll come out here, come out of the editor, press the first button, and now that Victory Tracker is active. But we haven't hooked it up to anything, so nothing's going to happen with it. So let's look at the logic connections. And there's a bunch of them under here. The first one is defeats an enemy. This was available in 1.0. Some of these were available when this was first introduced in 1.0. Some of these were not added until 2.0. Defeats an enemy was there originally. And if we select that, so this logic connection here, this is a trigger signal that this toy will broadcast when something defeats an enemy. If you select that, you have 3 options. So when anything defeats an enemy, or a player, or a team. All right? So when any player or team defeats an enemy, if you select this, that's the trigger signal that will get broadcast. If you're only interested in whether a specific player defeats an enemy, you can select this option, and that'll give you a list of players. So if you want to know when a specific player defeats an enemy, then you can do that. So let's do that, and we'll hook it up over here to our sound effect generator, and we'll make it do some cheering. Okay. And then let's come out and just drop an enemy so we can play with this a little bit. And we'll throw down a battle droid. And it takes a moment. Alright, so there's our enemy. Come out of the spark mode, come out of the editor. There we go. So the victory tracker keeps track again of when things are defeated or hit. In this case, we made the victory tracker keep track of when enemies are defeated, and it does some cheering. So that's one example of how you can use that. Let's go ahead and delete that link. And you can also have that happen when a specific team defeats an enemy. So if you've got a team consisting of players and enemies together on the same team, and you want to know when a team member, whether it's a player or an enemy, defeats an enemy, you can have it do something in response to that. So that one's pretty straightforward. The next one is defeated, and this happens when anything is defeated. So if we select under this option, if we select that, you have two options here: when a specific player is defeated or a specific AI. And again, if we select player, you can have it when any player is defeated, or when a specific player is defeated, or when a specific team is defeated. So I don't know why they decided to stick the teams and players here all under player, when in the other option they had players and teams split apart, but there you go. If you also want to know when an AI is defeated, you can use this option, and it could be any, it can be a friend, it can be an enemy, it can be an AI that's assigned to a specific team. So you can get pretty fine-grained with this. So if you want to know when an enemy is defeated, for example, and again, we'll come over and have it do some cheering. So it's another way to do the same kind of thing. But this one lets you keep track of not just when players and teams get defeated, or not just when players and teams defeat an enemy, rather, but also when enemies defeat enemies. And there we go. Cheering. So as I said, it does the same thing, but this one also will fire that if an enemy on a team defeats an enemy. Alright, so let's delete that link. The next option on the list defeats a player. Alright, so this is going to go off when a player, when something defeats a player. So when we select this, so when a player defeats a player, or a team defeats a player, or any. And again, the inconsistency here kind of bugs me, but the other options had any at the top. This one has it at the bottom, so it's kind of wacky, but you have the same options there. So if you want to know when player 1 defeats a player, then you can select that, or player 2, or any of those others. If you want to know when a specific team defeats an enemy, you can use that. And we'll need a second player in here for this, but I won't demo that. Basically, I think you get the idea. So if a player defeats a player, or a team defeats a player, you can have it do something. The next one is interesting, though. This one is gets hit. And this was available in 1.0 for this first option. So if you want to know when a player gets hit, you would select this, and it could be any player, or a specific player, or a player on a specific team. And you also have the option of knowing when an AI gets hit. So if you want to know when a friend gets hit, or an enemy, or an AI on a specific team, you can know that. This will broadcast a trigger signal for that. So let's take a look at this, and let's do something really interesting with this. So let's say if player 1 gets hit, let's come over to our kill switch, and we are going to have that player get defeated. So I just used the victory tracker to set up a one-shot, one-kill scenario. So now if I drop an enemy out here, he can now one-shot me. If he can hit me. You're a lousy aim, dude. You shoot like a stormtrooper. There we go. So you get the idea. And you might be thinking, why would I want to do that? Well, if you're going to build, for example, a platformer, like a classic kind of platformer, 2D platformer, and you want to have it set up so that when one of the enemies that you put on your level touches you or hits you or something, that you would die and lose a life, this is how you would do it. And I'm actually going to demo that in a future episode, so we'll save that for later. Let's go ahead and delete that link, and let's look at this from another standpoint. So new logic connection, when gets hit, AI enemy. All right. We'll come over to our kill switch and we'll defeat that thing. So what that means is if we drop a super powerful enemy out here, like for example, the Rebuker, I should be able to one-shot him. There we go. That's kind of cool. So what you could do, for example, with that is have a special ability set up in your toy box where, for example, you find a room with a power-up, maybe a trigger, floor trigger, or a button like this, and you push the button, you can have that button activate a victory tracker that will then allow you to one-shot an enemy. So the button or the floor trigger or whatever you want to use would basically act like a super power-up. And you could have it so that when you push the button, it comes over to the sound effect generator and does a power-up sound. So it kind of sounds like Mickey's just gotten a big boost of power, and then he can one-shot any enemy he comes across. So that's kind of a neat little feature. That can come in handy even on the PC version. So hopefully that gives you some ideas of ways you can use this, even if you can't do multiplayer, or if you want to build something for a single-player game, this can help you do that. All right, the next one is hits a player. And this option, as you might suggest, is when any of these things hit a player. So when it's a specific player hits another player, or a specific team member hits another player, you can have that do something. And again, we could hook that up and do something similar. You could also hook it up to a scoreboard so that every hit gives you a point, not just a kill. The next one is hits an actor. This one's kind of interesting because the name is kind of weird. Target stored, it says. But if you look, there is no option here to connect an actor to this. And so you might wonder, well, what in the world is that? Basically what this means is that whatever target the player hits, this will broadcast that signal. So if the target is an actor, such as a player or an enemy or a townsperson or a mount or a vehicle or anything that could be an actor, and we've talked about actors in early episodes, but anytime you hit one of those things that can be an actor, it'll broadcast this trigger signal. And again, if you want to know whether a specific player did that or a specific team member did that, you can do that. So for example, if player 1 hits an actor, we can come over here to our kill switch and defeat that actor. And as I said, you can do this for any kind of an actor. So we can put down our rebuker. We can put down a mount. We can put down a ground vehicle. We can do a townsperson even. Whatever. One shot, one kill. Get my sparks. If we hit the mount, we just killed the mount. We just killed the car. So that's what that option means. So whenever a player or a team member hits an actor, or anything that can be an actor, you can connect that up to a scoreboard or a kill switch or whatever you'd like. Sound effect generator. Lots of possibilities there. And then the last option here is Diffusinator. And I'm actually going to save this one for next week. So I'm not going to talk about that right now because I've got a whole different game I'm going to build with that. So we'll get to that next week. Alright, so now that we kind of know how this works, let's delete these toys, get them out of our way, and let's build our Mario Kart Battle Challenge here. So as I said, we need 4 toys, and I've dropped them out here. And let's go ahead and hook them up. So the first thing we're going to do is come over to our challenge maker. And we're going to leave all of the properties set the way they are. We're going to go by points. We're going to go high to low. All of these properties we'll leave set the way they are. And we're going to do a new locator connection. And we got starting locations out here for each of the players. So player 1, we're going to start over here facing toward the volcano. Player 2 is going to start on the other side of that volcano. And if you're on the PS4 or Xbox, you can have player 3 start over here, player 4 start over on the opposite side over there. So player 2. That's if you're on 2.0 again. On 3.0, you're still limited to 2 players. Alright, so there we go. And then we're going to need a scoreboard for this, so let's set that up. And for this challenge, we're going to have the players play till somebody hits 5 kills, okay? And we'll leave all of the rest of those properties set the way they are. We could set this up with a timer, we could set this up a number of ways, but we're just going to play to 5 kills. So on the challenge maker, new logic connection, on invites accepted, we'll come over and reset the scoreboard. So if the player wants to play this multiple times, they can do that. New logic connection, when the game is started, come over to the scoreboard and activate it. On the challenge maker, a new logic connection, when the game is ended, we want to remove it from the display. So we want to hide the score. A new logic connection, whether the game is completed or failed, we want to come over here and deactivate this. So I'll hook both of those signals up. So when the game is failed, we'll deactivate. And then on the scoreboard, we want to do a new logic connection when the target score is reached somebody hits 5 kills, we'll come to the challenge maker and complete the game. And the last thing we need to do with the scoreboard on the challenge maker is a new score results connection. Connect that to the scoreboard so we can see the final result at the end of the game. Alright, so that was just basic setup for the challenge maker. Now let's hook up the victory tracker for this. So on the challenge maker, we want to turn on the victory tracker first. So on invites accepted, we'll turn on our victory tracker. And likewise, when the game is ended, we'll turn it off. Okay, so that turns it on and off when the game is active. When the game isn't active, we don't need this doing anything. All right, now when a player defeats another player, we want to update the scoreboard. So on the victory tracker, a new logic connection. When defeats a player, we'll do player 1. So when player 1 defeats a player, we're going to come over to our scoreboard and we will increment by 1 the score for player 1. And you'll notice it says multiple connections created. So if we come back over here, you'll see there are 4 connections that are made to the scoreboard now. We made 1, it made another 3. And if we look at these, it automatically hooked that up for the other players. So that was kind of nice. We didn't have to do that. And there you go. That is basically the game. Now, one of the things you'll notice when you go to play it is that if you shoot the other player, that doesn't automatically kill them because we have a health bar. And so what we're going to do is set up our one shot, one kill mechanism here. So on the victory tracker, we'll do a new logic connection. When gets hit, player 1. So when player 1 gets hit, we're going to come over to our kill switch and we're going to defeat player 1. Likewise, on the victory tracker, a new logic connection. When gets hit, player 2. So when player 2 gets hit, we're going to defeat player 2. And you'd do the same thing for player 3 and player 4 if you're on 2.0. Alright, so now one missile hit or one gun hit or whatever on another player's vehicle will automatically defeat them, and that'll cause the scoreboard to increase. And so there we go. That is our basic challenge. It's pretty simple to hook up, but the key is the victory tracker. And now to test this out, we're going to need another player. So let me bring in Donald in the player 2 position.
Oh, hello, I'm Donald Duck.
Alright, so we'll put Donald on Darkwing Duck's vehicle. We'll put Mickey in his car. And then we'll come over to the challenge maker. We'll invite others. And this is where it gets interesting because on player 2's controller, I have to press Y to view invites, but that also will cause me to change seats. Oh, it didn't do that this time. Last time I did that, it made Donald change seats. Well, that's good. Now he stayed in the same spot. Okay, so each player starts in their own position, and there we go. So now, if we drive around, there's Donald, but I can't do anything with him because I don't have a weapon. So let's come over here and grab this. And you can see by the, oops, that's not going to do much. You can see by the quick pace that I'm getting around this that you wouldn't really want to get any larger toy box than this. Alright, so there we go. There's Donald lined up. So he automatically gets killed from one hit, and you'll notice I've scored a point. So there we go. Now let's go ahead and have Donald pick up a weapon, and we'll make sure that player 2 can attack. Oil slick isn't really going to do much. Let's see if we can get something a little different. There we go, some missiles. Alright, so then player 1 died, and you see Donald got a point. And so that's how the game works. And then the first one to 5 wins the challenge. And we'll go ahead and just exit out of that, because I think that's enough for the demo. And let's go ahead and take Donald out of here. Now, if you want to have the defeated player respawn in a random location, because as you saw, the player died, but they respawned right at the spot where they died, which could be kind of bad, because they're still in the enemy's gun sights. So if you want to have the defeated player respawn in a random location, I showed how to do that in episode 2 of my Player Battles mini-series. So you can use the logic from that episode to expand on this game, and I think that would be a really good feature to add to this. But there you go, that's how the victory tracker works, and that's how you can use it to build a battle challenge like a Mario Kart Battle Course. And again, you can also use it to set up a one-shot, one-kill kind of a feature if you need that for a particular game. If you want to see some additional examples of how to use the victory tracker, check out episode 3 of my Player Battles mini-series, where I showed how to use it to build a 2-player deathmatch, and episode 4 of my flight game series, where I showed how to build a 2-player aerial dogfight. Next time we're going to use the victory tracker again to build a very different kind of game, and I think you'll really like what I have planned, so be sure to subscribe to my channel by clicking my photo in the lower right corner of this video if you haven't done that already, so you don't miss the next episode. And before you go, leave a comment to let me know what you think of my battle course. That's all for me today. Have a great weekend.